there anything more exhilarating than wingsuit flying? Or perhaps more perilous? This extreme sport pushes boundaries, inviting daring adventurers to face incredible risks. Join us as we delve into the most harrowing incidents experienced by wingsuiters. Be warned, these tales are not for the faint-hearted, filled with graphic and unsettling details that reveal the sport's darker side. Mark Sutton was a man whose life seemed to defy gravity, literally and figuratively. Born into a family of prestige, with his father being Air Marshal Sir John Matthias Dobson Sutton, Knight Commander of the Order of the Bath, a former Lieutenant Governor of the island of Jersey, Mark was expected to follow a path of military honor. He did so, commissioned into the army in 1991 and serving with distinction for 4 years. However, the predictable life of military service never truly satisfied him. After leaving the army in 1995, Mark entered London's financial sector, a stark contrast to the adventurous life he craved. Surrounded by the high stakes of finance, he found solace in a more thrilling pursuit: wingsuit flying. This extreme sport involved gliding through the air at incredible speeds in a specially designed suit, which became Mark's true passion. Mark's skill in wingsuit flying quickly earned him international recognition, especially during the 2012 London Olympics. He famously performed a skydiving stunt as James Bond there, captivating millions. Despite his accomplishments, Mark continued seeking new challenges. In 2013, he participated in the Helibase 74 event in Chamonix, France, pushing the limits of what was possible in his relentless quest for exhilaration. With its rugged peaks and deep valleys, Chamonix was a natural playground for wingsuit flying. The breathtaking landscapes provided a stunning backdrop for the participants, each eager to etch their name into the annals of the sport. On the second day of the event, August 14th, Mark prepared for what was meant to be a warm-up flight. It was a routine jump, designed to last about a minute, from a helicopter hovering at 10,800 feet above the ground. Mark and fellow wingsuiter Tony Uragallo took their positions, ready to dive into the void. As the helicopter doors opened, Mark felt the familiar rush of anticipation. The wind tugged at his suit, a gentle reminder of the forces he was about to command. With a nod to Tony, he leapt from the helicopter into the crisp mountain air. For the first few seconds, everything was as it should be. The world below blurred as he reached up to 249 kilometers per hour, the mountains and valleys sweeping past in a rush of green and grey. But in the blink of an eye, everything changed. Veering slightly off course, Mark found himself on a collision path with a mountain ridge. At such speeds, there was no time for correction. In a split second, the joy of flight turned into tragedy. Mark collided with the ridge with such force that the impact left no room for survival. A rescue heliopter arrived swiftly, but little could be done. The severity of the impact was so great that a DNA test was required to confirm his identity. It was a sad end for a man who had spent his life pushing the limits, always seeking the next incredible thrill. The news of Mark Sutton's death reverberated through the wingsuit community and beyond. The remaining participants at Helibase 74 were left in shock, but they chose to continue with the event, dedicating their flights to Mark's memory. It was the only fitting tribute for a man who had lived in the air. The world of wingsuit flying and the broader world of extreme sports mourned the loss of one of its brightest stars. Mark Sutton had not only showcased the thrilling potential of human flight, but had done so with a grace and professionalism that inspired many. His legacy would live on in the sport he loved, in the memories of those who witnessed his feats, and in the hearts of those who aspired to reach the same heights. The morning of March 29, 2014, began like many others for Dan Vicari, Ludovic Worth, and Brian Drake, 3 of the world's most seasoned wingsuit flyers. Each of them had spent years mastering the art of wingsuit flying, a sport that marries the thrill of freefall with the grace of controlled flight. They were part of an elite group of athletes who dared to challenge the limits of human flight, pushing boundaries in a sport as beautiful as it was dangerous. The trio had gathered in the picturesque setting of the Luetschental Valley in Switzerland, known for its breathtaking scenery and appeal to extreme sports enthusiasts. With its towering ridges and steep descents, the valley had long been a magnet for wingsuit flyers seeking the ultimate rush. This particular day was supposed to be another successful flight for the team, a day to refine their skills further and bask in the awe-inspiring beauty of the Swiss Alps. The helicopter ascended into the clear blue sky, its rotors slicing through the crisp morning air. From their vantage point high above the valley, the three men could see the vast expanse of the Alps stretching out before them. The snow-capped peaks glistened in the sunlight, a reminder of the harshness of the terrain below. But for Vicari, Worth and Drake, the mountains were not obstacles. They were a playground where they could defy gravity and soar like birds. As they approached the jump point, the men conducted their final checks. Their wingsuits were in perfect condition, carefully designed to allow them to glide through the air with precision and control. They had meticulously planned their flight path, intending to follow a steep route over a ridge that would give them the speed and altitude necessary for a successful glide. It was a route they had flown before, challenging, but within their capabilities. At the designated moment, the helicopter doors opened and the men leapt into the void individually. The rush of air was immediate and intense, but it was a sensation they had grown accustomed to. For the first few moments, everything went according to plan. They gained speed as they descended, the wingsuits transforming their freefall into a controlled glide. The world below them seemed to slow down as they carved their way through the sky, the valley unfolding beneath them like a living map. But as they neared the ridge, something went wrong. Instead of maintaining their intended trajectory, they found themselves veering off course. The steep route they had planned to take now lay behind them, and ahead was flat terrain that offered little in the way of updrafts or natural features to assist in their glide. In wingsuit flying, altitude is life. Without it, the margin for error is slim. Realizing their mistake, the trio attempted to correct their course. They turned left, aiming for a more favorable slope to provide the needed lift. But the adjustment was too minor, too late. The ridge loomed ominously in front of them, its jagged rocks and sheer faces a stark reminder of the mountain's unforgiving nature. They were caught in a deadly confluence of factors: a misjudged approach, a lack of altitude, and the unforgiving terrain of the Lutschental Valley. Vicari and Wörth, unable to gain the altitude needed to clear the ridge, crashed into the ground with devastating force. The impact was fatal. The once thriving athletes were now lifeless on the cold, hard earth. Following close behind, Drake managed to avoid an immediate collision, but was forced to make an emergency landing. He survived the initial crash, but his injuries were severe. Despite the best efforts of rescuers and medical teams, he succumbed to his injuries 4 days later. The accident news spread quickly through the wingsuit flying community, sending shockwaves worldwide. Vicari, Worth, and Drake's deaths were a stark reminder of the inherent risks involved in wingsuit flying, a sport that offered the ultimate thrill at the ultimate cost. In the days that followed, an investigation was launched to determine the exact cause of the accident. While the full details remained unclear, it became evident that the miscalculation of their flight path and the unexpected terrain played a significant role in their deaths. The steep route they had intended to take would have given them the altitude needed to navigate the ridge safely, but the deviation from this path left them with few options for recovery. The incident also sparked a broader discussion within the extreme sports community about the risks of wingsuit flying. While the sport had always been dangerous, the deaths of such experienced flyers raised questions about how safety could be improved. In the aftermath of the tragedy, tributes poured in worldwide. Friends, family, and fellow athletes remembered Vicari, Worth, and Drake as fearless adventurers who lived life to the fullest. Weston was a man of duality. By day, a logical computer analyst, and by passion, a fearless daredevil. Born in Sydney, Australia, he lived a life balanced between discipline and daring. In the structured world of software development, Weston navigated the binary landscape with precision, just as he soared through the air with a gymnast's grace. However, his true love was base jumping, a developing sport in the early 2000s that attracted only the most daring. Base, building, antenna, span, and earth was more than a sport. It was a rebellion against gravity. Weston was a pioneer, introducing acrobatic maneuvers that redefined the sport. His crowning achievement came in 2002 when he won the world title, solidifying his legacy with a legendary jump from Malaysia's Petronas Twin Towers. Each leap was a calculated risk, a precise dance with death that defined his extraordinary life. However, Weston knew of the thin line separating life from death in base jumping. On October 5, 2003, Weston's life would come to a tragic end, but not before he etched his final act into the history of the sport he loved so dearly. The inaugural Go Fast Games were held at the Royal Gorge Bridge near Cannon City, Colorado, renowned for its breathtaking views and dangerous heights. The bridge, suspended 1,053 feet above the Arkansas River, was the perfect stage for one of the most daring base jumps ever attempted. Weston, constantly pushing the envelope, decided to take on the challenge in a wingsuit, a specialized skydiving suit with fabric extending below the arms and between the legs, designed to catch air and allow horizontal travel. The wingsuit was a relatively new innovation in the sport, and Weston was eager to explore its potential. The plan was simple but audacious. Weston would fly over the bridge while his fellow skydiver, Jeb Corliss, would go under it. Before the jump, Weston turned to Corliss and uttered words that would haunt the base jumping community for years to come. Just remember, whatever happens, happens. The jump began as planned. Weston launched himself off the edge of the bridge, his wingsuit catching the wind as he soared through the sky. But in those critical moments, something went wrong. Weston miscalculated the wind speed and his distance from the bridge. At an estimated speed of 120 miles per hour, Weston struck a railing on the bridge, the impact severing one of his legs. The collision was catastrophic. Although his parachute deployed, it was too late. Weston fell onto a rock face about 300 feet from the bottom of the gorge. There, in the shadow of the bridge, he bled to death. Many of the spectators on the bridge had eagerly anticipated the daring feat and were horrified. Some had cameras rolling, capturing the tragic event in real time. The sickening thud of the impact, the sight of Weston's lifeless body crumpled on the rocks below, and the shocked gasps and cries of the crowd. Investigators later analyzed the footage, which became a sad reminder of the sport's perils. The damage to the bridge, a testament to the force of the impact, would take weeks to repair, but the emotional scars left on those who witnessed the event would linger far longer. The aftermath of Weston's death sent shockwaves through the base jumping community, both in Australia and around the world. But for those who knew Weston, his death was more than just a tragic accident. It was a reminder of the delicate balance between passion and peril, and the price that sometimes had to be paid for living life on the edge. April 12, 2010's pre-dawn chill intensified as Jeffrey Robson, Leander Lacey, and Patrick O'Connor ascended the daunting Hutchinson Buttress in South Africa's Western Cape. The trio, an unlikely blend of scientists and stuntmen, were on a mission to the precipice. For Jeffrey, a 31-year-old Zurich-based researcher, this was more than an adventure. It was the culmination of years of study into the intricacies of wingsuit flight. His academic pursuits had delved deep into the physics of airfoil dynamics, transforming theoretical knowledge into a practical application. But theory would be tested as the first light touched the horizon, illuminating the breathtaking panorama below. Lacey and O'Connor, seasoned stunt performers, were no strangers to the edge. Their plan was straightforward, a traditional jump from 800 feet. For Jeffrey, however, the challenge was far more significant. A relative newcomer to wingsuit flying, he approached the sport with the methodical precision of a scientist. Equipped with state-of-the-art instruments, he meticulously gathered data from countless jumps, refining his understanding of flight with each descent. The moment of truth he arrived as Jeffrey stood at the precipice, the wind whipping at his exposed form. Below, the world stretched out in a dizzying expanse, punctuated by the distant silhouette of Devil's Tooth, his intended target. With a leap of faith, he abandoned the solid ground, but as he approached the saddle between the peaks, something went wrong. He traveled an estimated 200 kilometers per hour, a speed that left little room for error. The precise calculations needed to fully account for the treacherous winds that swirled around the mountains, or perhaps a slight misjudgment in his trajectory, led to a critical deviation. He realized too late that he would not clear the saddle. Jeffrey collided with the steep slope in that fraction of a second, where life and death balanced on a knife's edge. The impact was catastrophic. Jeffrey's body was thrown violently upon impact, rolling back approximately 15 meters. The force was immense, his helmet dislodged, his wingsuit battered and torn. The parachute remained undeployed, meant to be his last line of defense. In the silence that followed, the mountain witnessed human ambition's fragility against nature's unforgiving forces. Lacey and O'Connor, still on the cliff, watched in horror as their friend and colleague disappeared from view. The shock of what had just occurred took a moment to register, and then the realization hit them in full force. Lacey, driven by the desperate hope that Jeffrey might somehow have survived, immediately alerted rescue officials. But deep down, they both knew that the situation was beyond saving. The response was swift, but the terrain made access nearly impossible. The police, unable to reach the mountainous location, called in the Red Cross Air Mercy Service's helicopter to airlift Jeffrey. When the rescue team finally reached him, they confirmed what Lacey and O'Connor feared. Jeffrey was already gone. News of Jeffrey's death spread quickly, reaching Zurich, where his colleagues and friends were left stunned by the loss of such a brilliant mind. His father, Bill Robson, spoke that evening, describing his son as a brilliant mathematician who was most comfortable in the outdoors. For Jeffrey, the worlds of academia and adventure were never separate. They were intertwined, each informing and enhancing the other. For those who knew him, Jeffrey's passing was not just the loss of a colleague or a friend, but of a mind that sought to understand the world in ways few dared. The morning air in Tianmen Mountain National Forest Park, Hunan Province, China, crackled with anticipation. Mist clung to the mountain peaks, blurring the line between earth and sky and creating a mystical backdrop for the World Wingsuit Championships. Among the competitors was Viktor Kovacs, a revered name in wingsuit flying. Kovacs, a three-time Hungarian national champion, had carved a formidable legacy with over 700 jumps. His peers viewed him as a pioneer in the sport, blending grace with precision in human flight. August 7, 2016, began like any other competition day. The park, known for its dramatic cliffs and deep gorges, was an idyllic yet perilous venue for wingsuit flying, a realm where the thrill of flight mingled with the ever-present spectre of danger. Kovacs arrived in China with a singular aim: to excel in the competition and navigate the skies with the agility of an eagle. His preparation had been meticulous, and every jump and maneuver had been practiced in detail for this moment. As the mist gradually lifted, revealing the rugged beauty of Tianmen Mountain, the cliffs stood tall and imposing, challenging competitors to leap. Kovacs, suited up, approached the designated jump point, a cliff 700 meters high. The height was dizzying, the ground below obscured by lingering clouds. For Kovacs, this was familiar terrain. The height, speed, and adrenaline were all integral parts of his experience. The trial flight was a routine test to acclimate him to the terrain before the competition. Kovacs approached the cliff's edge and felt the world open up beneath him. Every muscle was prepared for the flight ahead. He leapt and was immersed in the sheer thrill of flight for a few moments. The rush of air, the blur of earth below, and the pulse of life were all-consuming. Kovacs moved fluidly, mastering the skies where conventional rules seemed to vanish. Then, disaster struck. His parachute failed to open as he neared the critical point to deploy it. The exact cause of the malfunction was unclear, but the reality was stark. Kovacs was plummeting toward the earth at terminal velocity, with no means to slow his descent. Witnesses on the ground watched in horror as the scene unfolded. What had been a display of human defiance against nature's limits became in an instant a tragic reminder of those very limits. Kovacs' trajectory altered slightly, his body twisting in the air as he fought against the inevitable. But without the parachute, there was nothing to be done. The ground rushed up to meet him with terrifying speed, the cliff walls closing in as he descended. The impact was catastrophic. Kovacs struck the base of a 100-meter cliff with such force that it shattered the mountain's silence. The sound of the collision echoed through the park, a grim announcement of the tragedy that had just occurred. Rescuers found a scene of devastation. Kovacs lay broken, his wingsuit torn and bloodied, his body unrecognizable. The severe head injuries and smashed skulls told the story of a life extinguished in a heartbeat. The search and rescue operation was swift, but fraught with difficulty. Tianmen Mountains terrain, beautiful though it was, proved a formidable adversary. Steep inclines, dense undergrowth, and treacherous footing made the task of recovering Kovacs's body grueling. Over 200 firefighters and police officers were mobilized, each aware that their mission was now one of recovery, not rescue. The reality of what had transpired weighed heavily on all involved. The community of wingsuit flyers, competitors, and spectators alike were struck with a profound sense of loss. His death was a stark reminder of the dangers inherent in a sport that flirted so closely with the edge of human capability. As news of the accident spread, the community collectively mourned, acknowledging that it had lost a competitor and a brother. The Red Bull World Wingsuit League, overseeing the competition, acted swiftly to honor Kovacs. Silence and somber pauses were observed at an event celebrating the thrill of flight. For many, the moment was deeply personal, a time to reflect on the fragility of life and the sacrifices made in the pursuit of passion.